7 o'clock. Before we rise, we have new people here. Mark Clark is unfortunately not here. He's the chair. I'm filling in his chair. I'm the vice chair, and I'm Mike Flynn. Arlie Herber will not be here tonight. So everybody else is here. So now I'll rise and we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Then, has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? And I would entertain a motion to approve or modify the agenda.
I so move that we approve it.
Okay, who
Second.
seconded it? Louis seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Review of the minutes of September 21st, 2023. I wasn't here. Is
Motion to approve.
okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Gene seconds it. Any discussion? Motion to approve the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Disapprove, nay. Hearing none, all in favor. Board of Adjustment updates. Anything, Jordan?
Yeah, we did two variances today. One which we've seen here before, Keith and Roseanne Nonheim, the house up on Government Point. We did a new variance for class 2 soils instead of would have been class 3 last time. So they moved the house back another 100 feet, and that was approved. We also did a small feedlot for Atlee Shetler in St. Charles Township, and that was approved as well.
Anything from the Commissioner, County Board?
We did approve last meeting, the Mark and Lori Tim, that was the residents on the edge of the field, and the Bass Camp, the new home at it elevated, both were approved. And unfortunately, we had an applicant for the planning and environmental services position, and we had one. We interviewed, and I just learned today that they withdrew their application. I'm not sure why or anything, so we will be posting again. So if anybody knows anybody that's a planner or developer, or have them consider applying.
Thank you. That moves us to our petitions tonight. Tonight we have one. It's docket Planning Commission tonight. And this is to consider Thomas and Janet Campbell, who seek a conditional interim use permit regarding the following: to allow a construction mineral sand extraction pit pursuant to chapter 10.4.6, subchapter 16 of the Winona County zoning ordinance. And I believe, Lou, do you have this one?
I'll take this
All
one.
right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. As usual, we'll run through a few slides, introduce the petition here. And if you have any questions along the way, you can feel free to let me know. The petition property is located in Saratoga Township, which is the far southwestern township in the county, south of St. Charles, section 23. This map on the screen shows the location of the mine boundary in black and the project area in yellow. Along County Road 6, which runs kind of at a diagonal. You can see St. Charles in the upper left corner there along I-90. We'll move on from there. This is a little bit closer view of the property. The dashed line is the project boundary. It consists of 3 parcels, kind of spans 3 parcels south of County Road 6. The property owner also owns one other parcel there just to the east of the highlighted parcels, but the mine isn't in that area of their property. Access from County Road 6 to the south. Um, This is a applicant submitted site plan showing the access drive coming from County Road 6 along the property line there. There's a couple of existing accesses that should be noted. The second access is proposed to be closed and in favor of the new access, which is just to the west. And you can see the 3 X's on the map. That's the existing access that would be not used, and it would be moved just to the west for the new access. That would tie into the existing kind of farmstead there. The yellow box is a proposed building, which would be an office as well as storage space for equipment. And then the road would follow to the south to the mine site. Mine site is approximately 30 acres. They're proposing, you can see the topographic lines there are the proposed grade after mining. And the max slope of that would be 4:1 on the upper portions where you can see the tighter lines. And of course, that gets, as the lines get wider, as it goes down, it flattens out. So max slope, proposed slopes would be 4:1. Stormwater infiltration is proposed on the upside of the existing road. They're going to use the road to impound stormwater coming out of the site. And there will be a culvert that provides a couple feet of freeboard in order to allow stormwater and sediment to settle before being released down gradient. This is a reclamation plan, which is very similar to the mining plan as far as the finished slopes. They do propose to seed the entire site in a pasture mix at the end of mining operations. Access drive would remain, but they plan to remove the stormwater infiltration and allow natural drainage to occur there instead of continuing to retain stormwater. Should be noted that they estimate the length of mining to take about 20 years and to deplete the amount of material that they think is there and accessible. So it's a long-term operation. They propose a maximum of 20 loaded trucks per day, which would be 40 trucks, 20 loaded at max. This is showing contours. Those are 10-foot contours. And the reason I included that was to show the geologic formation in that area. You can see the St. Peter, the geologic formation come from the north and running to the south, with the mine on essentially on a lobe of that. Those kind of darker purple is where the slope is, with the flatter grounds to the east and west. The area is in an area of low to moderate sinkhole potential. Again, the St. Peter sandstone is what they're going after, and it's very close to the surface in this area. The applicants have done some test pits along the top of that ridge and have not encountered any bedrock overburden or what's considered the Decorah edge. Thank you. The Decorah shale, which would be over top of that, and that does include some water resources. It can be associated with springs, but there is none of that on this site, or really anywhere close in the immediate proximity there of this location. And like I said, it's what they found in those test pits is just the St. Peter sandstone with very little overburden. Look at streams and water in resources in the area. can see the light colored streams here in this map are intermittent streams, with the darker stream starting downstream about 2 miles. Come over here and point that out. That location is roughly where the public water starts for Pine Creek. And then as you go down Pine Creek, the bottom of the map is the Fillmore County line. And that's where the trout stream, designated trout stream begins. So that's quite a ways downstream from the public water. And then it winds its way, and you can see it coming back up. Winds its way down and comes back up into Winona County and heads off to the east towards Rushford. Included a map here showing separation distances from neighboring dwellings. There are 11 dwellings within a mile. This only shows 7 of them that I included that are less than 4,000 feet from the proposed mine. So it's very low density area, but just wanted to illustrate the proximity to neighbors. Should also be noted to the west, as you go to the west, those areas are separated from the landform as well. There's a rise, and wouldn't be able to see anything coming from that direction. I'll have a few photos for you, kind of give you an idea of what the landscape looks like in that area. This is looking east along County Road 6 from the access point. This is looking west from the access point along County Road 6. This is from the essentially from the viewpoint of the proposed structure on the property. The existing farmstead, and looking to the south and west, and showing the landform that the mine would be excavating from. This is from the same vantage point, looking again to the west. You can see up on the hill the neighbors. Through the woods a little bit, some of the structures from the neighbor's property up on that hill. A little white building up there. Again, another aspect looking to the south and the east, past the proposed mine. Saratoga Township did review the petition and offered no comments. We have not received any comments from the public. No letters or emails. Nobody at the counter asking. No phone calls. We have drafted 15 conditions for your consideration if you decide to recommend a favorable approval. It should be noted that the ordinance does include the ability to attach a condition for financial surety. I have not included that in those 15 conditions, but it would be your prerogative to decide to do that if you so chose, and that is included in the ordinance. There's specific language to that regard. It is a consideration for the Planning Commission County Board. And that is for specifically reclamation. The draft findings are written in support of the interim use permit. I didn't mention that, but we have written this as an interim use permit, not a conditional use permit, for your consideration. And that's all I have. If people have questions, I'd be happy to answer some now or later.
Go ahead, Marcia.
question. So interim length of time, 20, 25 years?
The end date would be 20 years or until the mine plan is complete. So it could be longer if it takes longer to finish their plan.
Okay, all right. And then can we go back to one of the maps? Tom, where do you live in respect to the,
Right next to
Actually, I live about 2 miles
away from?
west.
Okay,
That's the home farm there.
Okay.
That's on, we call it the home farm.
okay. So where on this map is your?
Where Lou was
residence?
standing, he's just out of view.
Be down this direction.
Oh, okay, all right.
26.
Okay, I don't get to that end of the county very often. I don't have,
No, this is
I'm not missing much. Thank you.
Lou, do we know how many trucks are being used at the existing mine? The other mine that's going to be?
Currently, I can tell you that the original proposal for that mine, when it was for the Nisbet mine we're talking about, which is just a few miles away, it's not too far. That original, when it was supposed to be for frac sand, what they proposed was 240 per day. It was they never hauled for frac sand or for export. That market, my understanding is that kind of fell out before the mine was up and running. And so they've been hauling for local uses, construction and bedding sands for the last 10 years approximately. And from what I understand, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm understanding that they're pretty similar to what's being proposed here. That mine is almost mined out. And so the idea is that this mine would fill that market. Jordan?
Is that 20 trucks like a hard limit? Is it, or averaged out over a week, or I'm just curious.
It came from the applicant, so you can kind of ask them what they have a better handle on what they're expecting for numbers. But I think they did use an average over the 20 years and the amount of material that they estimated that they have, and thought that would be what it would probably take to make that 20 years on average. They could always, if they wanted to, over a short period of time, haul more. If they worked with us and contacted us, that would be a possibility. But without that coordination, they'd be staying under 20. And I think they felt that was reasonable. But yeah, maybe a good question for them.
Lou.
Well, I live on 6, and when they do haul sand, about 20 loads. You went by too.
Yeah, I could just see a situation like in the winter where you only have maybe one day of the week that has good enough weather to actually haul, where it would be necessary to have more than that.
That happens once in a while.
But would they have to file paperwork in advance of that?
I hope not.
Number 9
on the
in
con-
Your
on
conditions
page
specifically
23,
says
number
any
9's
exceedance
kind of,
of 20 loaded trips per day shall be immediately reported to the county.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It was something that it needed to be reported, and there needs to be some coordination there.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, their projections was for average, and understanding that might in those circumstances occur, but in that circumstance, yeah, you're probably only hauling once a week or something. And-
Yeah, Doug knows, he knows how that goes, but that truck issue is kind of you get bad weather, you might have to haul everything in one day instead of all week.
Yeah.
I hate to be
Right
like
now,
that number.
Right now with rain harvest, the semis are fairly thick going to Winona.
Yeah. Yep.
Anything else for Lou? Okay, thank you, Lou.
You bet.
Well, petitioners, if you have anything to say, come up. Just, you got to state your name and address because you're being recorded so we can go back and fill it in.
Tom Campbell. I live at 11763 County Road 6, St. Charles. I'm one mine there. Yeah, the reason to open up the mine, dairy people, they said the other IT sand's gonna run out of sand and they're looking for sand. So this was easy access off 6, they thought. And I agreed to it. They've been a couple of years, been after me on that. He's supposedly gonna run out between February, March. We're trying to get it done. I mean, that all goes by the weather or whatever. But running the same thing as him, dairy sand and maybe some construction sand, and ran by my authority is how it's gonna be run. I mean, we approved the report. The trucks are the only thing, and Jordan knows that some days you might have to really haul. Winter time's hard time, but yeah. But, you know, work reasonable hours, yeah, on that type deal, but that's all I got. That's what it's for, so.
Go ahead.
So that is County Road 6, and that is how many ton road? I should know, but.
They call it 9, it's a 10-ton road because in all, actually 10 ton on that 9 ton.
Okay,
road.
and so none of
David
these
says that.
trucks will be over. It says here,
They'll be
you'll-
by their axle weight, what they can haul.
and you weigh them before they leave.
It'll be
the-
weighed by bucket, and that depends all this approval. I'll probably put in a scale instead of bucket scale,
Okay,
you know, on the loader instead of that, yeah.
okay. And then I've had personal issues with trucks hauling stuff and having chipped windshields. It does say, so I got, not saying, I mean, it's like rocks and such, but you do, and isn't that required? Condition 12, it says you secure the load and prevent any load from dropping, shifting, leaking. So will the trucks have those tarps that get,
Well, I hope they do. I can't control every truck that goes in and out of there, same as IT sand. You can't control if they want to run their tarp or,
I thought
Fine.
maybe it was a.
but it's sand,
DOT.
it's sand, it's not rock,
Do we
it's sand.
know,
So
to
on
the
it.
DOT requirement that they have those tarped?
Yeah, no, but the deal with it is I've lived down there and hauled the sand and I haven't seen very much sand on the side of the road.
Okay.
I think you could drive 100 miles an hour and that sand would leave the truck.
Leave, okay.
And
But I was
reclamation,
just
my
thinking that was a
reclamation
MnDOT
plan, yeah.
A law, rule.
yeah, yeah.
But gravel can have some problems. All of those trucks, if you load them on the side.
Yeah.
The only thing on the reclamation plan, and he didn't say nothing there, I want to start reclaiming it as soon as I can. I think it'll be take 2 years to move the sand, work from one hill to the end and start reclaiming right away. I ain't gonna leave it open like the other one. I wanna work the way and be done, yeah. And if I don't like it, I'll shut the mine down if it don't work. It's gonna be underneath mine, so see how it goes. See how it goes with them, so.
Eugene.
Are you gonna do the work on the mine or as an employee or?
My son works for a construction that does reclaims trout streams and all that.
Yep.
And they'll be stripping the hill and putting the logs down and doing all that. I'll hire them to do it. My boy do that.
Oh, okay.
Yep. But we do trout streams and all over the place and do that. So I figured they should know how to do it. On that. Mhm.
Now I take it you have to get a certain amount of insurance for this whole operation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yep. That's why I'd rather have it underneath me so I know what's insured enough. Yeah. All right.
But it sounds like there won't be any subterranean digging. It's
No.
pretty easily.
Nope,
harvested
all
and
top, yep.
mined.
Yep.
Any other questions for Mr. Campbell? Okay, thank you. Let's open. Gene, did you
I
have something?
move that we,
That's what I'm getting to. Open the public meeting.
open the public hearing for
Okay.
petition
Okay,
number 1.
And Jordan seconds it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. All in favor. So now we have our public meeting. Anybody wishing to speak in regards to the petition? Anything on, go ahead. Say your name and address.
My name's Les Conway. I'm with WSE Massey. I prepared those documents on behalf of Tom and Janet. And so there were several questions that you guys had that I probably can address a little straightforward. So the aspect of the travel on the roadway, the county engineer came back and indicated that he recognized that the same travel is happening right now from the other pit farther to the east, and we're simply going to absorb that into it. And based on the load inside of it, the answer to your question is that if you have anything that tops over the top of your sidewalls, you're supposed to have it secured. So if you're still below the sidewalls in whatever truck you're running, then it's assumed that nothing's actually flying out of there. And then the other one has to do with demolition or other things that would be loose in a truck. So with regards to that and the stipulation that we have 20 trucks per day and then we just have to notify it. The other side of that is that in this conditional use, in these conditions, we're required to take tickets and then basically document that. So we believe there's enough fail-safe there that, you know, generally everything will go pretty smooth, but yeah, there could be options for it, and the farmers need it, and that's what we do. I believe that's a pretty straightforward application. What I also wanted to do was kind of, I'm not sure exactly how the board feels about it, but we didn't want to get into the surety issue. It's kind of excessive the way it's written when we already have a condition inside of the conditions that says we're only allowed to open up 5 acres, and yet you'd be asking for 110% of the reclamation. So I don't know if there's options there, or if we could, if you decided that that's something that the county does really want. There's also annual inspections, and if you start to see something that comes down the pike, there's certainly ways, there's other methods and mechanisms in place to take care of this particular item instead of putting a burden of a bond or type of financial security on it. So I was hoping that we wouldn't go down that particular road, but if there are options, it should be reduced because we already have limitations in the conditions that limit the amount of work that we can do. So that should be a consideration if you decide to go down that route. I think the rest of it is very favorable, and I agree, we would like you to approve it with the staff recommendations. They're all certainly doable.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this petition? Anyone on Zoom? Anybody else wishing to speak? And for the third time and final time, is there anyone else wishing to speak at the public hearing?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Eugene seconds it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All in favor. Any questions, Marcia?
I have a question for staff. Okay, this is being proposed as an interim use permit, which has approximate ending date. But is an interim use permit, can you sell it? Say if Mr. Campbell wants to sell the land, does it go with the land? A conditional use permit goes with the land. Can you sell it? And will they be assured to be able to?
If he wanted to, he probably could in this case. We haven't put any restrictions on property ownership, but I don't think that's his intention.
No, but I'm just asking from a process with it.
But yeah,
IUP,
you can condition an IUP to a property owner.
Okay.
You can do that and say, the IUP expires if it is sold to somebody else. But in this case, we haven't done that. In this case,
I don't know that I want to do that, but I'm just trying to understand things change.
Right.
They might
Yeah.
want to.
Yep, IUPs allow for that, but in this case, we're using the time frame and just the
So would a new
the amount of
person
material.
have to reapply, or how would it just carry over if they follow all the conditions? I'm just asking.
Thanks. So in this case with the mining operation, the way it's crafted in this language, he could sell the land and the operation would go with it. It sounds like he's not interested in doing that. But yeah, the way it's written here, because most of these mines, how they work is they do have an end date. And so with, industrial mining companies, I think it is common for the ownership to change hands multiple times. Here, what could happen is the way it's written, they could transfer it and someone else could take up the mining on that property because the IUP would go with it. However, we could change the language to basically say it has to be maintained by the same
No,
applicant.
I'm trying to protect the property owner's rights if they decide, to sell it. Does it have that, if it, in my opinion, if it can't be transferred to the new owner, it loses considerable value for them.
In this case, I would take the position that this IUP would run with the land until the time that the condition makes it expire. So once it's mined out, or 20 years, whichever one occurs first, then it's expired. But in the interim, if someone wants to transfer it, they can still mine it based on how this petition is written, or this
following all the
Permit.
conditions that are, they wouldn't have to jump through our hoops again to get permission.
That would be my understanding and interpretation of this permit.
All right, thank you.
Louis, I didn't see any clause in here, but if Tom is going to reclaim the ground as it goes, I don't see where we would need a fee for reclamation because it's being reclaimed as it goes.
Yeah, where is it supposed to be? This, the language that we've been talking about here.
20,
Well, it's in the conditions and I don't know the
22.
exact page.
22 and 23.
I only got 15.
Um,
2 page numbers on each page.
On the very bottom, there's a planning commission agenda packet page is in the very small print.
Yeah.
Page 22 and 23 are and then goes on to 24, the recommended 15 conditions. You see it there? I think you're on the right one. So the reclamation is on the bottom of page,
23.
23, reclamation 14.
There's no surety attached to that currently, right?
No, I don't see anything there. No,
Okay.
but it does say as the mine proceeds in no amount of 5
Well,
acres.
and the idea of reclamation is kind of nefarious because they can say they did a reclamation, but then something can go awry. There can be a force majeure after an attempted reclamation. As performance bond of 110% of estimated reclamation. I like the idea of maybe doing 20% performance bond as he's going to be extracting for 20 years. A fraction of the total. And that would cover time, because time is about the only thing that will guarantee whether or not a reclamation is successful.
To
I'd
the
like your
extent,
opinion on that.
yeah, to the extent you were to require a reclamation, it could be written, or I think it would be interpreted such that it would be 110%. So the ordinance allows for 110% to start, but it would be 110% as applied to the part that would need to be reclaimed, and they can only have 5 acres open at a time. So I don't think we'd be talking about a monster bond, covering the entire site being reclaimed. It would only be the operational area. So just something to consider. And I think the ordinance, I could double check, but it was up to 110%. So I suppose you could go lower in your recommendation too, but I'll verify that.
Yeah, come to the mic.
The big question about this is that when we use the word performance and payment bond, when we talk about bonds, we're actually talking about generally construction companies. Now, in this particular case, I'm asking if there are other financial options, such as a letter of credit that could be on file that would be acceptable, because to go after bonding, you generally have a lot of equipment that you have operational. Well, there won't be that much equipment associated with this, which is why I believe Lou actually asked me for what's actually going to be in the pit. There's only going to be a couple pieces of equipment. If we're only looking at the 5 acres for reclamation and we had a $25,000 or a $20,000 letter of credit that you would have access to that would be agreeable to the county attorney, that's obviously a simpler way that would satisfy what you're referring to. But also understand that in the conditions themselves, if you have an annual inspection and you can shut down, the county could shut down the operation if they didn't think it was going that well, or they could say, by next year, you need to have something done. But now there's also a state permit that has to be done, which means that reclamation has to happen as well, which means the state could even come in and shut it down, even above and beyond what the county can do. There's plenty of checks and balances here, which is why it's in there, and people like to say it so that they feel like they're protected, but the protection comes with you being able to access it. And bonding isn't really necessarily the ideal situation, and it's an ongoing cost that would be that would be bared by the owner that doesn't necessarily give you what you're looking for. That's why I brought it up in that case.
I'm just curious, I'm not real familiar, the insurance that he was saying he needs, what does that cover?
So the insurance would actually cover, it would be all of the things that would be workers' comp, that would be equipment operations, that would be liability, general liability for that particular operation, because that's different than a farming operation. So there's a little bit more general liability that would get associated with it, which is why we broke out the legal description saying, okay, all of the things that happen on this particular parcel, these are the things that are there. There's going to be a dozer, there's going to be a backhoe. That's different than a tractor and and a combine and something like that. It's a whole different operation that would have general liability. It would have equipment, which you can't really call it collision or comprehensive. It's just whatever that insurance is for those pieces of equipment, and that would be ongoing. So it's more for a coverage of an umbrella for the owner.
Thank you.
So some clarification on the ordinance to follow up on that. So the authority to add a bond as a condition to a mining operation would be found in Winona County zoning ordinance 9.10.3A. Unfortunately, the language is pretty restrictive in what you can and can't do. So it says the county board may also require a performance bond of 110%. So not up to 110%, it has to be 110%, and it has to be a performance bond. So that would seem to rule out letters of credit. However, it says may, which is permissive. So in this case, you could just not decide to include it, because it's limiting the board within the ordinance to either a bond for 110% of the reclamation cost or nothing. So that's kind of the options that we're left with how this provision in the ordinance is written. And yeah, that's the issue is some of our other, I was talking to Lou, some of the other parts of the ordinance, like for solar, it allows for other sureties like letters of credit. Unfortunately here, the language of the ordinance says it has to be a performance bond. So maybe something to add to our growing list of changes we want.
Yeah, but we gotta do this now. We can't wait for some changes.
Right.
Right.
Well, just my comment on it, the landowner has a high regard to do reclamation, right? Because his end goal is to reclaim this. And he talked about that earlier. He's going to do it in 5 minutes, 5-acre segments. So it would come back to the landowner if things didn't work out, because it's his pit. And if it's not done correctly, he owns all that land, and if it didn't get reclaimed right, county attorney, couldn't the county come back, put it back on his taxes if he didn't do things properly?
We could look at revoking the permit. I'd have to take the special assessment matter. I'd have to look into that to see if you could do something like that. Usually from prior dealings where we want bonds, the concern is if you have like a developer or somebody else putting something on the property, the concern is oftentimes that they'll just walk away and leave it there. At least that's with solar projects, wind projects. If something goes awry, you don't want the person to kind of just leave and kind of leave the landowner holding the bag. Here, you have the operator of the mine and the landowner being the same person. So he has more of an incentive not to just walk away with a, mining pit just sitting there, not reclaimed. But yeah, certainly if you guys want to know about if we could look at special assessments, that's an option. Definitely would be grounds for, revoking the permit if they're out of compliance. But
The other thing I wanted to ask you or whoever from zoning, the Nesbit sand pit, what kind of bond is on that one?
Yeah, I have looked at that. It's the same ordinance language, 110% performance bond was attached What ended up happening with that one, though, it's a little different because that was all, there was an EAW with that one and it was all being reviewed under the auspices of a frac sand mine. So it was all, much more intense, much quicker extraction, much more impact to roads and it was the first one in the county as well. So it was a different circumstance. So that condition was attached, but when they came back and weren't going to be hauling 240 trucks a day and it was going to be more around, like the 10 to 20, there was a number of those those conditions that didn't get applied. And so a performance bond was one of them. I don't believe we ever actually required the performance bond unless they were going to start ramping up their intensity of their operation and be hauling like for something that had a much higher demand, like for frac sand. So the road use agreement, that was a condition. That's not even a condition here because it doesn't really apply to this application. That application had like 35 conditions attached to it. But only, I would say, I don't know exactly how many, but many of those didn't actually get applied because it was a lower intensity and they never ended up ramping up to that level. And the bond was one of those that never, I don't believe was ever asked for.
So I'm just saying, this is a replacement for that one. We don't need it for that one. So why do we need it for this one?
That's a good question to ask yourself.
Eugene?
I would like to emphasize that this gets pretty involved. And so let's try and keep it as simple as possible and forget this whole reclamation ordeal.
Well, on the conditions though, Eugene, our discussion is not just reclamation is going to happen.
Well, no, I don't mean, I
Performance bonds. So
understand
you're
that, but
speaking
I mean
specifically of
the
performance
Bond.
bonds.
the performance bond part of it.
Because the other mine has already proved that they didn't need a performance bond. And this one is
Right.
replacing that one. And that is the only point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
That we're not creating a monster. And as the Lou pointed out, the other one was going to be a frac sand. It was a whole different equation and then it got pulled back.
Yeah.
And I hope we all understand that. So with that, anybody else have any comments? Let's have the landowner, yeah, whatever you want to tell us, go right ahead.
Yeah, on the reclamation on the bond, like I said before, we're gonna be 5 acres open. The hill is pasture. It doesn't have many cattle and they get hurt. The hill is really steep. But I'm gonna reclaim it to either farm it or pasture it. And like I said, but if reclamation in that hill sand doesn't come out right or like how it looks, like I said, I'm gonna shut mine down myself. The land's been in our family for 150 years. I'm not gonna sell it. I'm not gonna wreck it. The reclamation, I want it quicker or whatever like that. I'm not, like I say, it's gotta come out right. Otherwise I ain't gonna do it. That's plain and simple to all that. It took 2 years for me to just decide to do it. I didn't want to take it, but according to the bond, the land's not going anywhere. Guaranteed that. The many years it's been the family, and like I told Lou and that, we got all our plans, but I'd like some of it subject to change, because if the water runs off different than the soil people thought, I'd like to be able to change it so I can stop that water to run. I don't want to be locked to that plant. I'd like to change something. Like they do on trout streams and all that, something happens, they change it. I want to because it's not going to be a 2-year pit. It's going to go out in years. I want to be able to change to the weather, basically, on that. So I want.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Campbell. Any other comments? Commission. Louis,
Motion to approve with the conditions of findings and facts.
Second,
any discussion? All in favor of the conditions and recommendations, findings of fact, and recommend approval, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Hearing none, so moved. Our recommendation to proceed. And I want to clarify that your next meeting with the county board will be November 14th at 9 a.m. Okay, is that what you understood? Thank you. Any other things to come before the board or Commission.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, do I have a second to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned at whatever time it is.
Yes, Tom.